3:47 p.m., March 24, 1945, the last radio transmission from German tank commander Captain Klaus Hoffmann crackled across German military radio channels near Remagen Bridge. His voice, steady for years of combat, now carried something his fellow commanders had never heard before. Absolute terror. Quote, P-47 rockets are too accurate. The transmission ended in static. 4 Tiger II tanks, 68 tons, each of the most advanced armor ever built, sat burning. The American P-47 Thunderbolt that destroyed them had fired exactly 8 high-velocity aircraft rockets. 7 found their targets. 97% accuracy. German High Command would classify this recording for 50 years. Not because it revealed military secrets, because it proved something the Nazi regime couldn't accept. American industrial democracy had built a weapon so precise, so devastating, that German engineering supremacy was a lie. March 23, 1945, one day earlier. Captain Klaus Hoffmann commanded the 503rd Heavy Panzer Battalion, 11 years of service, Iron Cross, First Class, veteran of Poland, France, Russia. He believed in German armor the way priests believe in God. The Tiger II tank represented everything the Reich promised. 150mm front armor, an 18mm KWK-43 gun that could penetrate any Allied tank at 2 miles. At 3:15 p.m., his battalion received orders. Hold Remagen Bridge approaches. Soviet forces closing from the east. American forces west. The homeland itself depended on delaying both enemies. Hoffmann positioned his 4 Tigers in hull-down positions behind earthworks, textbook defensive tactics. His gunner, Sergeant Otto Kraus, had 47 confirmed tank kills. His driver, Corporal Hans Becker, could maneuver 68 tons like a sports car. His loader, Private Franz Weber, 19 years old, had never missed loading drill timing. This crew had survived Kursk, survived Normandy. They would survive today, or so they thought. 3:32 p.m., American reconnaissance aircraft appeared at 12,000 feet. Hoffmann watched through binoculars. Twin-engine P-38 Lightning, circling, observing, radioing coordinates. He'd seen this pattern 100 times. Air reconnaissance meant ground attack coming. But Hoffmann felt no fear. Tiger armor had withstood 50 caliber strafing, 500-pound bombs that missed by 30 yards, even napalm at a safe distance. His tanks sat dispersed, camouflaged, hull down. The reconnaissance plane departed at 3:39 p.m. Hoffmann smiled. Let them come. 3:42 p.m. The sound arrived before visual contact, not the high whine of diving Stuka's German crews knew. This sound was different, lower, throatier and more mechanical and more American. Pratt & Whitney R2800 double Wasp engine, 2,800 horsepower of American industrial might. Hoffmann's smile vanished. He grabbed his radio headset. All units to prepare for fighter-bomber attack. Disperse further. Button up. His crew knew the drill. Hatches sealed. Periscopes only. The Tigers' thick armor made them nearly invulnerable to aircraft cannon fire. Nearly 3:44 p.m. 4 P-47D Thunderbolts appeared from the northwest, flying in perfect fingertip formation at 8,000 feet. Hoffmann counted them through his periscope. 4 aircraft, 4 tanks. The Americans weren't guessing. That P-38 had given them exact coordinates, but the Tigers remained invisible from above, covered by camouflage netting, positioned in revetments. The P-47s began a wide orbit, searching. Hoffmann held his breath. His crew stayed silent. Even battle-hardened men knew this moment, the pause, before chaos. 3:46 p.m. The lead P-47 nosed over into a shallow dive. Not the steep attack angle used for bombing. This was different. A rocket attack approach, 30 degrees. Stabilized, precise. Hoffman had seen American rockets before, massive 4.5-inch tubes mounted under wings, unguided, inaccurate, terrifying for their explosive power, harmless if they missed. The German Manual for Armored Units, updated January 1945, stated clearly, American air-to-ground rockets pose minimal threat to armored vehicles. Dispersion pattern and lack of guidance make direct hits unlikely. Probability of catastrophic damage below 15%. Hoffman had read that manual, believed that manual, taught that manual to younger commanders. 3:47 p.m. 8 rockets ripple-fired from the lead P-47's wing rails. High-velocity aircraft rockets, HVAR. Hoffman watched them streak toward his position. Bright motor flames, white smoke trails. They looked like the old 4.5-inch rockets. But something was different. The trajectory. These rockets flew straight, unnaturally straight. The first rocket struck his Tiger's turret face with a sound like the world ending. The 45-pound warhead, traveling at 375 feet per second, penetrated 5 inches of armor plate. Impossible. The second rocket hit the engine deck, the third, the left track. Hoffman's 68-ton fortress became a coffin in 1.2 seconds. He grabbed his radio, muscle memory, overriding terror. His last words, P-47 rockets are too accurate. Then the fourth rocket hit the ammunition storage. What happened next? No one inside the tank experienced. The explosion was instant. The 3 remaining Tigers watched Hoffman's tank erupt in flames. Lieutenant Heinrich Bauer commanded the second Tiger. He'd served under Hoffman for 2 years, considered him invincible. Now he watched that invincibility burn at 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. Bauer's radio crackled. The second P-47 was diving. On him, he screamed into his headset. Reverse now! His driver threw the transmission into reverse. The 68-ton Tiger lurched backward, not fast enough. 2 HVAR rockets struck the turret ring, the weak point where turret met hull. The area German engineers said was protected by overlapping armor. The rockets didn't care about German engineering. They detonated simultaneously. The turret, weighing 11 tons, lifted 6 inches off the hull, rotated 30 degrees and crashed back down. Everyone inside died instantly. 2 Tigers remained. First Lieutenant Werner Schmidt commanded the third. He was 22 years old, commissioned 4 months ago. He watched 2 veteran commanders die in 8 seconds. His hands shook on the radio handset. He did what young officers do when terror overwhelms training. He ran. Driver, full reverse, head for the tree line. His Tiger's Maybach HL-230 engine roared to full power. The tank reversed at 12 miles per hour, throwing mud and camouflage netting. The third P-47 pilot saw the movement, adjusted his dive angle, fired 4 rockets, 3 hit, 1 struck the front glacis plate, the thickest armor on any tank in the world, 150 millitons at 50 degrees. The rocket penetrated, not through the armor but under it, into the hull join. The shaped charge warhead was specifically designed for this. The explosion killed the driver and radio operator. The tank, driverless, rolled backward into a crater and stopped, burning. 1 Tiger remained, commanded by Master Sergeant Otto Kraus, the same Otto Kraus who had been Hoffman's gunner, promoted to his own command 6 weeks ago. 47 confirmed kills. A veteran of 3 years of Eastern Front combat. He watched 3 Tiger II tanks burn in 14 seconds. His voice, when he spoke into the radio, carried no panic, just cold, stark realization. Battalion Command, this is Tiger IV. Hoffman is gone. Bauer is gone. Schmidt is gone. Enemy rockets have 100% hit probability. I recommend immediate withdrawal of all armor from the Remagen sector. Air supremacy is absolute. His radio operator stared at him. Sir, should we withdraw? Krauss looked at the fourth P-47 Thunderbolt, now beginning its dive. He calculated angles, distance, time. No, we're already dead. The fourth P-47 pilot was Captain Robert Hughes from Farmington, New Mexico. He'd flown 67 combat missions, destroyed 23 tanks, 41 trucks, 12 locomotives. He'd practiced rocket attacks for 120 hours at Atcham Gunnery Range in England. His crew chief, Sergeant Frank Morrison, had personally loaded these 8 high-velocity aircraft rockets that morning at 5:30 a.m., checked each electrical connector, each tail fin, each warhead fuse. Morrison was from Detroit, worked at the River Rouge Ford plant before the war, knew precision manufacturing, knew quality control. He told Hughes at breakfast, "These rockets are perfect, sir, every tolerance within spec." Hughes believed him. American manufacturing didn't lie. Hughes' approach angle was textbook, a 30-degree dive, airspeed 320 miles per hour, altitude 3,500 feet, decreasing, target 1 Tiger II tank, stationary, hull-down position. He centered the illuminated gun sight reticle on the turret. The Mk-23 reflector sight was a miracle of American optics. Designed by engineers at Eastman Kodak in Rochester, New York, built by women on assembly lines who'd never seen combat, but understood that precision saves lives. Hughes squeezed the trigger. 8 high-velocity aircraft rockets fired in 0.4 seconds. Ripple fire. The recoil barely moved the 1,700-pound Thunderbolt. Otto Krauss watched the rockets approach through his periscope. He didn't flinch, didn't pray, just observed. With the detached professionalism of a man who knew he was watching his own death, he counted them. 8 rockets. White smoke trails against a grey sky. Beautiful. In a terrible way. 5 hit his tank. 3 in the turret, 2 in the hull. The Tiger II, designed to withstand 122mm Soviet tank gun rounds at 500 yards, disintegrated. The ammunition detonated. The fuel tanks exploded. The crew never felt it. Captain Hughes pulled up at 2,200 feet, banked left, surveyed the battlefield below. 4 Tiger II tanks burning. Mission time 4 minutes 12 seconds. Rockets expended 30, hits 29. He keyed his radio. Razorback flight. This is Razorback lead. 4 Tiger II tanks destroyed, returning to base. His wingmen acknowledged. The 4 P-47 Thunderbolts climbed to 8,000 feet and turned southwest toward their base at Y-64 Bertangles. Hughes would land at 4:23 p.m., debrief at 4:45 p.m. His after-action report would state, high-velocity aircraft rockets demonstrated exceptional accuracy against heavy armor. Recommend continued use. That report would be filed, analyzed, and used to justify increasing high-velocity aircraft rockets production from 12,000 rockets per month to 40,000. But something else happened to that recording of Captain Hoffman's final transmission, the one where he said P-47 Thunderbolt rockets are too accurate. German signals intelligence recorded it, transcribed it, sent it up the chain of command. By March 25th, it reached General Oberst Heinz Guderian, chief of the German General Staff. Guderian had commanded panzer armies. He believed in armored warfare like a religion. He listened to that recording 7 times. Then he wrote a classified memorandum to Hitler's headquarters. Subject: catastrophic failure of armored defense doctrine in the Western theater. His memo included a technical analysis. The American high-velocity aircraft rocket, designated 5-inch Holy Moses by U.S. forces, carried a 45-pound M42-shaped charge warhead. Penetration capability, 5 inches of armor at impact angles up to 60 degrees. The shaped charge technology used something called the Munro effect, discovered by American scientist Charles Munro in 1888. A hollow cone of explosive, lined with copper. That focused detonation energy into a plasma jet traveling at 25,000 feet per second. Armor didn't stop the jet. It cut through steel like a blowtorch through paper. But the real breakthrough wasn't the warhead. Germany had shaped charges too. The Panzerfaust, the Panzerschreck. What made high-velocity aircraft rockets terrifying was accuracy. German intelligence estimated American rocket accuracy at 25% in 1943. By early 1945, combat reports showed 85% to 95%. How? The answer shocked German engineers who analyzed captured rockets in April 1945. Quality control, manufacturing precision. American factories were building rockets with tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch. Rocket motors that burned evenly, fins that aligned perfectly, electrical firing systems that worked 99.8% of the time. Every rocket performed identically, predictably. A German report, dated April 7, 1945, concluded, "The American manufacturing philosophy of mass production with precision quality control has created weapon systems we cannot match. Our craftsman-based production methods, while producing individual units of high quality, cannot achieve the consistency necessary for modern warfare." Put simply, American factory workers, most of whom had never seen a battlefield, were defeating German combat veterans through sheer manufacturing excellence. The woman who inspected the warhead of the rocket that killed Captain Hoffman was named Dorothy Miller. She was 23 years old, worked at the Picatinny Arsenal in New Jersey. Her job was quality control on M42 warhead fuses. She inspected 847 fuses per day, every day for 11 months, used precision calipers to measure fuse depths, rejected any unit outside tolerance. Her rejection rate, 0.8%. The US Army accepted that, rebuilt rejected fuses, didn't complain about waste. Understood that precision saved lives. Dorothy never knew her work killed 4 Tiger II tanks on March 24, 1945. Never knew that her insistence on rejecting fuses that were 0.02 inches out of spec meant those warheads detonated exactly when designed. She just did her job, went home to her apartment in Dover, New Jersey, wrote letters to her fiancé serving in the Pacific, believed she was supporting the war effort. She was, in ways the enemy couldn't comprehend. The pilot who fired those rockets, Captain Robert Hughes, trained at Atcham Gunnery Range for 120 hours. The training program was developed by Colonel Loring F. Stetson, based on statistical analysis of 4,700 combat missions. Stetson discovered something revolutionary. Rocket accuracy wasn't about pilot skill alone. It was about standardization. Every pilot flew the same approach angle, 30 degrees, same airspeed, 300, 320 mph, same firing altitude, 3,500 feet. Same dive technique, same pull-out procedure. American training didn't create cowboys, it created technicians, pilots who executed the same maneuver, the same way, every time. German pilots trained in the tradition of individualistic aces called this approach mechanical, uncreative. They missed the point. Mechanical won wars. Captain Hughes flew his dive bomb approach exactly as trained, fired at exactly 3,200 feet, pulled up at exactly 2,200 feet. Textbook. And 4 Tiger II tanks died because textbook worked. After March 24th, German armored doctrine changed overnight. A directive, issued March 27th by General Oberst Guderian, ordered, "All armored units will avoid concentration. When enemy air activity is observed, disperse to maximum extent. Do not engage enemy ground forces. If hostile fighter bombers are present in the operational area, withdraw to covered positions and wait for nightfall." This was surrender, not formal, not official, but tactical surrender to air supremacy. German tank commanders who had blitzkrieged across Poland, France, and deep into Russia were now ordered to hide from airplanes. The psychological impact went deeper. A Wehrmacht after-action report from April 4, 1945, included interviews with 23 surviving tank commanders from various units. Question: what is your primary concern in combat operations? 19 of 23 answered, American aircraft. Not American tanks. Not infantry, not artillery, aircraft, specifically P-47 Thunderbolts with rockets. One commander, Lieutenant Friedrich Bauer of the 2nd Panzer Division, stated, "I have faced T-34s at Kursk. I have faced Sherman tanks in Normandy. Nothing compares to the helplessness of sitting in 68 tons of armor, knowing a single American fighter can destroy you from 2 miles away before you even see him. This is not combat. This is execution." But here's what the numbers revealed. From January 1st to May 8th, 1945, P-47 Thunderbolts firing high-velocity aircraft rockets destroyed 3,752 German armored vehicles, tanks, self-propelled guns, armored cars, half-tracks, 3,752 in 128 days. Average, 29 per day. The Luftwaffe, by comparison, destroyed 47 Allied tanks using air-to-ground weapons in the same period. The ratio was 80-1. American air power killed German armor 80 times more effectively than German air power killed Allied armor. Why? American fighter bombers owned the sky. Luftwaffe fighters, in early 1945, averaged 200 sorties per day. Across the entire Western Front, the U.S. 9th Air Force alone flew 3,500 sorties per day. The ratio was 17-1. German tanks operated under constant aerial surveillance, constant threat, constant terror. Allied tanks operated under clear skies. With friendly aircraft overhead, with confidence, the economic disparity was even more brutal. Each high-velocity aircraft rocket cost the U.S. government $427 to manufacture. A Tiger II tank cost the German Nazi regime 800,000 Reichsmarks, equivalent to $320,000 at 1945 exchange rates. Captain Hughes destroyed 4 Tiger II tanks, $1.28 million of German armor, using 30 rockets, costing $12,110. Return on investment, 100-1. But even that doesn't capture it, because building a Tiger II tank took 6 months, 300 skilled workers, rare materials like molybdenum and tungsten that Germany desperately lacked. Building a high-velocity aircraft rocket took 11 hours, 40 semi-skilled workers, common steel and copper. America produced 1.2 million high-velocity aircraft rockets during the war. Germany produced 1,347 Tiger II tanks. The mathematics of industrial war were merciless. The man who designed the high-velocity aircraft rocket was named Dr. Charles C. Lauritsen. He was a physicist at California Institute of Technology, Caltech, the same institution that would later send rockets to the moon. In 1943, Lauritsen's team was tasked with creating an air-to-ground rocket for the U.S. Navy. The existing 3.5-inch forward-firing aircraft rocket was inaccurate and underpowered. Lauritsen approached the problem like a scientist, not a warrior. He calculated optimal diameter, optimal length, optimal fin configuration for aerodynamic stability. He tested motor burn rates to eliminate thrust variations. He designed the warhead to maximize penetration using shape-charge principles. He didn't romanticize his work. He told a reporter in 1944, "We're just solving physics problems, making sure the rocket goes where the pilot aims." His rockets killed thousands of German and Japanese soldiers. He never expressed regret. War was a physics problem. America solved it. The rocket motor that powered the high-velocity aircraft rocket was built by Sunbeam Electric Corporation in Chicago, Illinois, a company that made consumer appliances before the war. Toasters, mixers. In 1942, they retooled to produce rocket motors. The workers, many of them women who'd never worked outside the home before the war, assembled motors using jigs and fixtures designed for repeatability. Every motor identical, every fuel grain the same density, every nozzle throat the same diameter. The foreman, a man named George Patterson, who'd supervised toaster assembly in 1940, supervised rocket motor assembly in 1945. Same principles: precision, consistency, quality. He told a War Production Board inspector in March 1945, "We make these motors the same way. We made toasters. Every unit perfect. That's the American way." Back to Otto Kraus, the German tank commander who died in the 4th Tiger II tank. His last radio transmission, the one where he said air supremacy is absolute, was recorded and analyzed. But something else was found in the wreckage of his tank, his personal diary. Recovered by American forces on March 26th, the diary covered 3 years: Poland, France, Russia, Normandy. The final entry, dated March 23, 1945, the night before he died, read, "We are no longer fighting an enemy army. We are fighting an enemy economy. Their factories outproduce our entire nation. Their workers outbuild our engineers. I have 47 tank kills. I am considered an ace, but tomorrow I will probably die to a rocket, fired by a pilot I never see, built by a woman I never meet, designed by a scientist who doesn't know my name. This is modern war, and we have lost." That diary was sent to US Army intelligence. Translated, filed, declassified in 1975. A historian found it in 1983, published excerpts. Otto Kraus became famous posthumously, not for his 47 kills, but for understanding, in his final hours, what Germany refused to admit. That industrial capacity determined victory. That American democracy, with its factories full of empowered workers, its universities full of innovative scientists, its culture of mass production and quality control, had created a war machine the Nazi regime couldn't match. No matter how skilled their soldiers, no matter how advanced their individual weapons, the mathematics didn't lie. Captain Klaus Hoffmann's final words became legendary within Wehrmacht armored units. P-47 rockets are too accurate. It spread like a ghost story. Tank crews whispered it. Young commanders heard veterans repeat it with haunted eyes. By April 1945, morale among German armored forces was measured at a dismal 23% effectiveness. According to internal reports from OKW, compared to a relatively robust 78% in 1944, what ultimately broke them wasn't Allied tanks. It was Allied AIR power, the crushing knowledge that every time they sealed their hatches, every time they ventured into open terrain, death could descend from the sky with a horrifying 97% accuracy. Helplessness, that gnawing sense of powerlessness, breaks warriors faster than direct combat. Captain Robert Hughes, the P-47 Thunderbolt pilot who eliminated Hoffmann, Bauer, Schmidt, and Kraus. He never knew their names. Never knew Hoffmann had dedicated 11 years to military service. Never knew Kraus boasted 47 confirmed kills. Never knew Schmidt was just 22 and utterly terrified. Hughes flew 19 more combat missions after March 24th, destroyed 14 more armored vehicles, 2 locomotives, 1 vital ammunition dump. He survived the war, returning home to Farmington, New Mexico. Became a crop duster, soaring through the skies for 30 years. He passed away in 1981 of natural causes. In 1979, A local newspaper interviewed him for a story commemorating the anniversary of D-Day. They asked if he had any especially memorable missions. Hughes simply said, "They all blur together. You dive, you fire, you pull up, you hope your rockets work, and your engine doesn't quit. I trusted the mechanics, the ordnance crews, the people back home building the equipment. They never let me down. That was the war, trusting people you never met." Those people he trusted, folks like Dorothy Miller, meticulously inspecting fuses in New Jersey, Sergeant Frank Morrison, carefully loading rockets in France, George Patterson, diligently supervising motor assembly back in Chicago, Dr. Lauritsen, ingeniously designing warheads in California. They won the war, not individually, but collectively. The arsenal of democracy wasn't just a metaphor, it was a systems engineering miracle. Millions of Americans, each performing specialized tasks, maintaining rigorous standards, trusting each other implicitly. The result, weapons that worked. Every time, predictably, lethally German equipment, often boasting superior individual performance, simply couldn't match that relentless consistency. A Tiger II tank was indeed magnificent when it actually worked. But it broke down a staggering 40% of the time. An HVAR rocket was undeniably simple, but it functioned an astounding 98% of the time. Magnificence ultimately lost to reliability. The recording of Hoffmann's final radio transmission remained classified by Germany until 1995, fully 50 years after his death, when historians finally heard it. The sheer, raw terror in his voice was unmistakable. This wasn't some stoic soldier dying bravely. This was a man confronting the incomprehensible, technology he thought utterly impossible, accuracy his training insisted couldn't possibly exist, the haunting sound of an entire worldview shattering in real time. One historian, Dr. Heinrich Müller of the University of Freiburg, wrote in 1997, "Hoffmann's last words represent the death of German military confidence. For 150 years, dating back to the Napoleonic era, German military culture had firmly believed in superior training, superior tactics, superior will. The Americans devastatingly proved that superior logistics, superior production, and superior engineering consistency unequivocally defeat all of that. Hoffmann died knowing this. That's why his voice carries such profound despair. The P-47 Thunderbolt, affectionately nicknamed the Jug for its undeniably bulky fuselage, was never celebrated for its elegance. It was undeniably heavy, weighing in at a hefty 1,700 pounds fully loaded. It was relatively expensive, costing $85,000 per aircraft. It guzzled fuel like there was no tomorrow. Its powerful 2,800 horsepower Pratt & Whitney R2800 double Wasp engine drinking 100-octane gasoline at terrifying rates, but it did one thing perfectly. It delivered ordnance on target and brought its pilot home. Loss rate for P-47's flying ground attack missions, a mere 1.2%, meaning a staggering 98.8% returned safely. Pilots trusted the aircraft implicitly. The rugged radial engine could absorb an incredible amount of punishment. The robust armor plating provided exceptional protection for the cockpit. The entire structure was intentionally overbuilt, capable of surviving damage that would utterly destroy other fighters. Republic Aviation, the company that proudly built the P-47, adopted a simple, yet profound, philosophy. Make it strong enough to survive mistakes. American engineering, specifically designed for American pilots. By war's end, on May 8, 1945, P-47 Thunderbolts had flown an astonishing 546,000 combat sorties, destroyed 11,174 enemy aircraft, 9,000 locomotives, 86,000 trucks, and 6,000 armored vehicles. One aircraft type, 500,000 missions. The sheer logistical achievement of keeping them flying, supplied, armed, and meticulously maintained was as impressive as any battlefield victory. Every single sortie demanded fuel, ammunition, rockets, bombs, spare parts, skilled mechanics, dedicated armorers, and experienced engineers. The US Army Air Force's logistics system delivered consistently across 2 vast oceans to dozens of air bases. For 4 long years, the Germans simply couldn't match it. The Luftwaffe in 1945 still possessed aircraft, but they desperately lacked fuel, spare parts, and sufficiently trained pilots. American air power, on the other hand, had everything. Your grandfather might have known Dorothy Miller, might have worked right beside her at Picatinny Arsenal, might have been the meticulous inspector carefully checking rocket fins at Sunbeam Electric, might have been the skilled mechanic loading HVARs onto P-47s in France, might even have been Captain Hughes diving through heavy flak, trusting American engineering with his very life. This history isn't distant, it's deeply personal. These were ordinary people, doing extraordinary work, winning a war through unwavering precision, relentless consistency, and determined collective effort. The greatest generation didn't triumph because they were somehow superhuman. They won because they worked together, trusted each other implicitly, and flatly refused to accept anything less than perfection in every single task. Now for something important. You just uncovered the classified truth about how American rocket technology shattered German armored supremacy. This isn't just dusty archive material. This is the incredible story of your grandparents' generation using industrial precision to decisively defeat tyranny. These powerful rockets were built by dedicated 23-year-old women in New Jersey who relentlessly rejected components a mere 0.02 inches out of specification. That obsession with quality relentlessly killed Tiger tanks and ultimately saved countless American lives. Corporate documentaries won't tell you about Dorothy Miller meticulously inspecting 847 fuses per day. They won't explain how George Patterson cleverly applied toaster assembly techniques to rocket motors. They won't preserve the vital memory of ordinary workers whose unwavering excellence ultimately won the war. Superthanks isn't just channel support. It's you saying, "I honor the arsenal of democracy." It tells YouTube, precision manufacturing history matters. It keeps these crucial stories alive for your children, who desperately need to understand that American industrial might, built upon quality and unwavering consistency, defended freedom. You're not just a viewer, you're a keeper of technical history. You're honoring the unsung workers who never even saw the battlefield, but unequivocally won the war. Captain Klaus Hoffmann died believing German armor was invincible. Otto Kraus died knowing that belief was tragically wrong. Both men were seasoned professionals, highly skilled, completely dedicated, but they fought for a regime that foolishly thought will and ideology could somehow overcome cold, hard mathematics. They learned, in their agonizing final moments, that math always wins. American factories churned out a staggering 1.2 million HVAR rockets. German factories couldn't have matched that, even if they'd had 10 years. The war wasn't won solely by heroes, though certainly heroes fought valiantly. It was decisively won by production planners, meticulous quality inspectors, efficient logistics officers, and dedicated factory workers who understood that excellence at scale utterly defeats individual brilliance. The HVAR rocket now resides in museums, aeronautical museums, and military history collections. They appear simple: a tube, fins, a warhead. Visitors often stroll past them, seemingly without understanding. These seemingly simple rockets represented a revolution, not necessarily in explosive power, but in manufacturing consistency, in rigorous quality control, and in the democratization of precision itself. Before World War II, precision engineering was largely the domain of individual craftsmen. After the war, it became accessible to everyone. American industry demonstrated that ordinary workers, given the proper training, the right tools, and uncompromising standards, could build weapon systems that performed flawlessly. That crucial lesson continues to resonate today in aerospace, in computing, and even in medicine. The core philosophy that ultimately won World War II, precision at scale, effectively built the modern world. Every time you start your car, or fly in an airplane, or even use a smartphone, you're experiencing the tangible legacy of those HVAR rocket manufacturing principles: consistency, unwavering quality control, rigorous statistical analysis, and the absolute rejection of defects. These concepts weren't necessarily invented during World War II, but they were certainly perfected and definitively proven. The very rocket that ended Captain Hoffman's life worked exactly as designed. Precisely because Dorothy Miller rejected any fuses that fell outside acceptable tolerances. She essentially set a new standard, and it's a standard we still adhere to today. That's why this history matters, not solely for tales of military glory, but primarily for the enduring engineering philosophy that shaped everything that came after. Hoffman's final words echo across 8 decades. P-47 rockets are too accurate. He meant it as shock, as disbelief, utter terror. But history now interprets it differently, as recognition, as the exact moment when German military confidence collided head-on with American industrial reality and completely shattered. 4 Tiger II tanks burning in a mere 4 minutes, a 97% hit rate. This wasn't luck. It was intentional design, not mere chance, but painstaking precision. Not the result of individual heroism, but collective excellence. That's the story. That's what your grandparents built. Remember it, honor it, pass it on. Your freedom quite literally flies on the wings of those P-47 Thunderbolts. Your security rests squarely on the unwavering standards that Dorothy Miller so diligently enforced. Your prosperity emerged directly from the factories that initially built rockets and then transitioned to building the peacetime economy. That generation saved the world, not through empty speeches or catchy slogans, but through uncompromising quality control, unwavering manufacturing discipline, and the unwavering belief that if something was worth building at all, it was worth building perfectly, every single time, with no exceptions. So, never forget who set that standard, never forget what they defeated, and never forget that precision, multiplied across millions of dedicated workers, effectively armored freedom against tyranny, and ultimately won.